Keep Right with Ralph K. Ginorio. Cowardly Kamala. The diversity hire Democrat presidential candidate Kamala Harris makes her birth characteristics the center of her campaign. If elected, she will be the first Asian-Jamaican female American president. Like Obama before her, she would have never been seriously considered by anyone as fit to carry out the heavy duties of president based upon her actual accomplishments. The color of her skin and her sex are what brought her to prominence, not any demonstrated merit. This is all obvious to anyone who has followed her career. Harris has achieved no distinctive accomplishments. Her deeds have not set her apart from the average politician. Anyone critical of the candidacy of this mediocrity of a vice president is charged with racism and sexism, ad hominem, accusations of thought crime intended to deflect questions and stifle opposition. Without anti-white racism and anti-male sexism, Kamala Harris's efforts would never have resulted in her rising to national prominence. Today, most Americans could care less about a person's race or sex. Most of us crave a colorblind and gender-blind meritocracy, where a person's intentional actions matter more than any accidental inherited characteristics. I try to follow Martin Luther King's recommendation to prioritize assessing a candidate's character over any genetic traits. Kamala Harris's greatest problem is her deficient character. Kamala Harris has no shame. She rose to prominence as a San Francisco feminist by dating former Mayor Willie Brown. She has always seemed oblivious to the irony of this. Her achievements as California Attorney General were a result of the efforts of her hardworking staff, more than her own questionable leadership. Her record of earning the loyalty of such staff, then and now, is abysmal. Good people do not remain under her leadership, citing her propensity to be abusive, narcissistic, and likely to blame staff for her own deficiencies. A person who cannot earn the loyalty of her personal staff has no business asking for the public's trust. In California and in the White House, she politicized her priorities in serving her own factional interests over the objective duties of her office. Kamala Harris degraded her office's legitimacy. She consistently chooses to serve herself over giving service to others. Open and blatant hypocrisy characterize the disconnection between Kamala Harris's words and her deeds. As Tulsi Gabbard pointed out in a 2020 debate, while Kamala bemoans disproportionately Black prison populations, her DA's office maximized prison terms for relatively minor offenses among the African American population. As the border czar, who has never visited our southern border in that capacity, Harris has presided over the largest Volkswanderung, mass migration of whole populations, in United States history. Her intended policy has been and remains to replace voters who have left the Democratic Party with countless illegal aliens who will soon reliably vote Democrat. Yet now, she makes noises about border walls and immigration controls that superficially seem to echo Trump's proven commitment to national sovereignty. This is but one example of Kamala's refusal to engage the American people about policy. Her online presence is disjointed and mutually self-contradictory. Her speeches are vague, characterized by emotionalism, without any grounding in a consistent set of policy proposals. Apparently, no voter is expected to go deeper than the question, isn't it time for America to have a black woman as president? For months, since the coup that overthrew Biden's candidacy, Harris has absolutely refused to engage in anything spontaneous. Cowardly Kamala assiduously avoids unscripted events. Her craven fear is well founded. Throughout her public career, her performance in interviews is universally terrible. For decades, she has experienced great difficulty in answering even the simplest question without going into a cloud cuckoo land of word salad and cackling like a fairy tale witch. So she hides behind a shield of aides, proxies, and propaganda because the real Kamala is not ready for prime time. Kamala Harris's record is one of supporting every flavor of woke social engineering intended to erase our shared Western civilization. She has demonstrated a steely commitment to do all that she can to destroy our society in order to build her vision of a utopia on its soon to be forgotten ashes. However, such rampant leftism cannot attract enough support to win the 2024 presidential election. So now Kamala and her enablers are hiding her record and are instead recreating her as a political moderate who has somehow transitioned herself into nothing less than the very personification of joy. This image is even more ludicrous since for decades, Kamala Harris has consistently abused her own personal staff to such a degree that she has great difficulty retaining anyone. If she cannot earn the loyalty of those who work closest with her, how can she be capable of leading the free world? Kamala Harris exhibits no shame for her history of being a self-serving coward who has never learned to take responsibility for her choices or to be accountable for her actions. Her character is unworthy of our trust.